love, acceptance, naivety, belief, faith. That sort of compassionate acceptance that our mothers and fathers have at the worst of times, because they just let the world take what it needed to take from them and kept quiet about it because they knew what was good for them. You know? And if that ever happened to your mom or your dad, it can make you angry. And we live with that anger. We don't want to make it any worse than it already is. But that's where the war truly lives, inside each of us. And I'll meet that war. I'll be honest about that war. I'm not going to win that war or control that war. Maybe I can't give that war away. But at the very least, I can give it a name. If it needs to live in me, I'll be a good host. But I won't be so stupid to say as it cannot control me. It cannot be my doom. It is almost a sentence inside of me, a poison. We've all been given the poison. Poison death. We're all going to die from that poison. But some of us will have a cure. Some of us know we can't afford to delude ourselves if we're going to truly find the cure. Complete the sequence of words we need to make so that your brain can leverage enough oxygen out of all the air it needs to give to the windbag of the world to say a few things that, having been said, will get away from the living dead, remove some of that dread and the reasons for it because of what we just said, what we acknowledged, what we dared to breathe, that didn't seem to have any reason to breathe. Words that we never seem to have the reason to make, and nor the breath that would give them life. In a world where we used creative and female energy to make too much death, and we wouldn't have, except that we had to, against the day when we could stop doing it and take a rest that didn't amount to anything better than our deaths from labors that had been ill-conceived in their dread or in the dead, that they were nothing, meant as though never mean more than their own death, the labor of death, the labor that never gets satisfied. Our occupations should make life. Our occupation should be like the spring. Our occupation should be like the sun to the world. Generosity should be more than a name. Its spirit should live upon our every breath like a song, and all should be made free and safe and private in themselves and in their trust, safe even from each other, so that our minds could live true, safe and sane and sound as ever we should be, because we could be made unsound, and the smartest of us feel unsane. And to dread the of yourself is to be honest in your brain. Father, you would think you're quite a silly man. Silly or unsound or crazy or strange, ill-kept and ill-content that I smoke marijuana every day and I walk around and I make a lot of thoughts and sounds. A good deal of which sounds fair enough for at least who I am and how I feel, and I make a kind of art of it, if only because of the extraordinary faith it has to take to think that it'll ever add up to anything better than homelessness. So Father, I wish to apply for your faith and your goodness and your strength, because I've become the kind of son who might err on the side of being a bit of a pig and wanting any of those things, given the way I seem to have chosen to live my life. Thank you, Father, for your anticipated generosity. Please don't hate me. Please don't hate me, Father. I feel like my emotional body, very, in all honesty, and without wanting to be a bad son, would probably say to my father, please don't hate me. And he would say, oh, I never hated you, my son. And I said, then why did it feel that way? And maybe we'd share a moment of incredible shock and grief that my father might be forced to admit that he had lent his labors to striking me and scaring me, or as he said, treating me like a dog. I'm pretty sure he didn't want to become my kind of father. And I'm pretty sure no kind of little boy that my father was born as ever wanted to become that kind of person, and we should never want to become this or that kind of person that sometimes we end up becoming and not wanting to be. And of all the people we could not want to be that to, you don't want to be that to your son. You don't want your son to have a reason to hate you. But you didn't want a lot of people to have a reason to hate you. You didn't want my mother to have a reason to hate him. But that didn't change the fact that she did. And herein lay the story of my life. It doesn't lend itself to the intelligence even of the theater, or of the novel, or of the poem, or of the epic, or of this or that science or medicine of man. But it should be all my medicine to give it a moment to stand on its own 2 feet and not to have me bemoan it entirely just because it struck me down, struck me dumb, made me all sad about myself, in wondering with fear and dread whether or not I even deserved to be loved by my father in the first place. Because I grew and did not grow, because I had a mind and did not use it the way I was supposed to, that I struggled to find that I didn't even know I was allowed to have about things as simple as emotions, struggle as it did to endure the occupations that I increasingly felt to keep myself safe, at the risk of making myself even more unsafe. That some distance now has gone between me and the safety of my first home, and brother, or mother, and father, and I am not all too well commended to that other life, and these other labors, and the satisfactions which we are to learn to sustain, the worthiness of those labors to be rewarded thusly in the journey from childhood to adulthood, to doom, and by many labors and occupations which go by so swiftly, and not because they are so joyous, but because they are so tiresome, that they are perhaps suitable refrains for which the rest and the death they are apportioned to can make increasingly more and more sense. That our death was worthy of such labors. Our labors should be worth no more than death, but rather our labors should be worthy of life. People should retire as though in the spring of life. Their labors should have said, hey, we can do all of our occupations so that the flowers will come up in spring. A good gardener does not spend time in the flower garden so the flowers all come up sick and dead. And yet retirement for the average working man is that to nothing but sickness and death. And the alcohol it takes to make even the recreation in between seem anything more than either of those. Do you see what I mean then when I say that my father's son has grown to know, to feel, and to hunger in ways that may seem right for me and wrong for everyone else? Wrong enough to my father that he needed to strike me for saying such things. What great sickness do you have, my son, that you make such strange sounds? And well, that's it. I smile, I laugh, or I cry. I love my father. I love my father dearly. And I didn't want to ever be a part of losing him. And what a father needs to be. I'm really sorry for that. Really sorry. Maybe I'll spend every day being sorry. Maybe that'll be my religion to my father. It'd be called sorry, Dad. Sorry. Sorry for being me. Because the more I was, the less you could be. And that's a tough grind for any man. You or me. So, yes, I know a little bit about biblical curse. If I was giving a workshop or a memoir, I'd be like, let's get right into it. People, I know a little bit about biblical curses. Pull up a chair. You learn about biblical themes and then you look at your own life and fuck. I said to my mom one day, I was laying in her bed with my mom and said, God, Mom, sometimes do you think we're biblical characters? She's like, get out of this bed. She's like, hey, come on, we're biblical characters. Because I don't know if she couldn't take my proximity or my sense of humor or both. Because I'm a curse. I'm cursed to my own mother.